Currently, the front is about 850 PSI in the brakes. Race car, don't care, looks pretty. By the way, did I mention this thing has a title? We can drive it on the street. Yes! Which I thought, this is really cool. I think it's great. Let's go for it. What's up, people? Welcome back to Casey's 80s Garage. This is an unexpected chapter of the garage in the 80s because I got a Corvette, a blue Corvette that a lot of you have been wondering what the heck it is back there. So today's your lucky day. I'm gonna show you, come on. So anyway, you guys may know I am currently selling a 1992 Trans Am with Dream Car Exchange and VinWiki to raise some money for Genius Garage. And while looking, I was trying to find a car to sell. And I happened upon this C4 Corvette race car, which I thought, this is really cool. I think it's great. Let's go for it. So we went for it and I was short on time. And I was a little worried about it because it's a race car. And the truth about race cars is they break a lot and most people don't understand them, and that can be a difficulty. So I said, when we go to sell this, I said, okay, let's get this car. I think it'll be good. And if it's not, I'll buy you out, because I just believed in it and I thought it was a good car, either going to be great for this channel or potentially for Genius Garage or whatever. So anyway, so we did that. So we got it, and it was a really great owner, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But I became somewhat concerned about selling this to just anybody because it's kind of a nasty race car. And the other thing is the way the motor is built, or what could theoretically be wrong with it, it's got really low oil pressure. Lot lower than I think is acceptable. Maybe if you're in some kind of like spec series and you're trying to get 1/10 of a horsepower out of it, but I'm not pretty happy with that. The engine is rather fresh, but I'm gonna have to do some stuff. So I didn't want to sell this in exchange because I was concerned. So let's move beyond that. I think it's a good car in general. It's been loved and owned by a family for 20 years and built over that time period. They've autocrossed it, they've driven on the street, they've road course raced it. It's got SCCA and HSR logbooks and stuff, and it's an old C4. So I want to show you guys what we got here. Boom! It's actually pretty darn nice. Now, truthfully, this car started out as a 1985 normal C4 Corvette. And if you want to kind of pan back a little bit, Aaron, like not pan, but like go back so you can see more of the car. Obviously, you guys can see it is painted as a 1996 Grand Sport Corvette. It did not start life as a 1996 Grand Sport Corvette. Now, for all you super Corvette geeks that don't see the light of day in the last 20 years, that think VIN numbers and things like that are really important, I will tell you this. Race car, don't care, looks pretty, cool car. Get over yourself in VIN numbers and rarity and stuff, okay? So didn't start life out as Grand Sport, but painted up like one, looks really nice. Because frankly, it got wrecked once. They hit a tire wall and screwed up some bodywork, and they're like, let's just make it look like that. And frankly, I think it looks really good. Now, some things that are neat about this car. The suspension is largely stock in terms of, if you want to take a peek, the A-arms and everything going on here. It's got the mono leaf springs on it and regular dampeners, nothing too special, because when they were autocrossing, I guess, or in the series, they needed to be somewhat stock in that regard. I don't think you can quite see it, but if you want to go back just a little bit, it does have 6-piston Willwood calipers on it with stainless braided brake lines, so that's quite nice. The Corvette already had vented rotors on it, so that should be quite good, especially if you get some good pads in there. And it's got some nice lightweight 3-piece wheels running the Hoosier DOT. I think these are the R7 or A7 compound tires. Same tires we've ran on the prototype car with Genius Garage in the past, and is also on the red prototype car from earlier this year. This is a 383 engine here with a mechanical roller cam in it, and it rips, you guys. I've got the dyno sheet on it from before, and the thing's making the better part of 500 horsepower, and has just an awesome torque curve throughout there. Like I said, the thing that made me concerned about it was it's a mechanical roller cam. You got to adjust it. It is exactly like a race car, exactly like our yellow Genius Garage Corvette over there, and how that is. So that's something that takes a little more care. But it's actually wet sump. And if you want to come over here and look in the interior, you can see the trick in a wet sump oiling system. So generally speaking, most street cars are wet sump. All the oil is held in the oil pan, which is good and bad. It's bad because it heat soaks, and then if you're high-speed cornering, the oil will slosh one side or the other, and maybe it won't pick up. So if you're like in the carousel or the keyhole at Mid-Ohio, or you're in the long, I think it's called the carousel at Road America, you will potentially starve your engine of oil and oil pressure from that. So this is called an accusump, It basically acts, it's like an accumulator, or kind of like a capacitor is for electricity. And it's got compressed air on one side and a piston here, and this line goes to the high pressure side of the oil in the engine. So when you open this up, and I won't do it right now because it'll let out whatever in there out. When you open that up and the car is running, the oil pressure will pump some oil in here, and then you adjust your oil level in the pan to be correct. So that way, if you're cornering and your pickup for your oil pump in a wet sump system starves, instead of it not having any oil pressure, this thing can push out like a quart of oil and keep you having pressure during that time. And then when you come back to driving straight, the PSI of the oil pumping will pump the oil back in here, and you'll go back to have the right level. So this is kind of a nice rudimentary thing. I used to have that in my first race car, which was a Devon, but basically makes it so you can run a wet sump oil system well on the street. Now, the people that own this had it for something like 20 years, and I think it's got a lot of love. The paint looks pretty nice, and I like the finish. The roll cage is done pretty well. And generally speaking, things are nice. Obviously, they had a lot of success with it, so in no way do I have anything negative to say about them. But there are things that we can improve together, which I think are going to be a lot of fun on this channel. Let me open up this trunk. We'll look at some more things too. So let's talk about what state of build it's in, and then we'll talk about what we can improve a little bit. I'll just start in the engine bay, we'll go to the interior, we'll go back here, and then we'll look underneath the car best we can. And obviously I'll get it out soon. By the way, did I mention this thing has a title? So as long as it's reasonably quiet, and I've got DOT tires on it, and I got turn signals and stuff working, we can drive it on the street. Yes! So, in terms of things that can be improved, or I'm kind of looking forward to on this channel to make it my taste, now the first thing is I want to figure out the oil system and get it totally sorted to where it's going to be safe and right. Not safe and right like I'm a machinist and an engine builder and I get off on doing nothing but rebuilding engines, because I like rebuilding engines and making horsepower, but I hate having to do stuff I don't have to do. So I would rather it make oil pressure in a range that makes sense to me and likely to last longer, and just have a slightly bigger oil cooler on it than run something stupid low because a guy thinks it's a good idea. I'm not knocking him. I'm not made of money and time, and I don't feel like rebuilding motors on a car that's supposed to be fun. So there's a couple of things here. One, if you look at the oil lines here, the high pressure lines, here's the oil cooler for the engine. This particular oil cooler is kind of a low efficiency one for flow and all. I could replace that and upgrade it a little bit if it's getting hot. Also, these plumbing type lines, they work, but depending on how tight of a bend they are, they don't flow as well as a nice bend AN line. So if that's something where it could potentially be improved, obviously they just pushed this high pressure line over the barb fitting here, which obviously has served them well and has worked, and even with over 200 degrees of temperature in the oil and the pressure that makes and all. But if I bump the oil pressure more up to where it needs to be, you know, there's some concern. So what I'll probably do is I'll put a backup clamp on this so it couldn't slide. You know, it's kind of like better safe than sorry. It takes very little effort to do that. So that's something I'll do, just the little things. Gonna go over it, nut and bolt everything. Now, if you notice right here, the car has 2 master cylinders. Can you see this here? So it's actually already done really well with the brakes. It's got either a wheel rotor tilt and ceiling mounted brake pedal in it with a bias bar adjuster. So one of the master cylinders is from front, one is for the rear. That's nice because it's safe. So if you lose a front or a rear, you still got one side, so you can get the car wound down safely, but also gives you the opportunity to balance the front to rear. And Aaron, I hate to do it to you, but if you can walk all the way around over here, I want to show you something really cool with regard to the brakes. So while you're coming around, I'm going to try to hop in the car here. Let's go. It's tight quarters, you guys. I'm sorry. We've got all kinds of stuff jammed in here because we've got other projects going on. All right, so I'm getting in. It does have doors, but the roll bar is really high anyway, so I just jump in through the window. All right, so I'm gonna yank the steering wheel off here. Also, this steering wheel is okay, but this is kind of like what you find in NASCAR, which is all right, but it's not really my style. So I think I may change the steering wheel, get it a little closer, make sure the ergonomics are right. So you see these 2 gauges here? I've never had a race car with them. It's kind of neat. So when I push the brake pedal, you can see them going up because it's telling me how many PSI is in the front brakes and the rear brake line. So here's my bias bar adjuster, which adjusts the mechanical leverage that I can apply on the pedal into each master cylinder. So watch this here. As we push up, you can see, as we get up there, it's biased toward the front. So currently the front is about 850 PSI in the brakes, and the rear right now is right about 700, and it goes like that. If I were to adjust this, let's see, let's go more to the front. See how nicely it adjusts or not nicely it adjusts. Kind of wiggle that a little. It's being a jerk. Will it change? All right, so I push that. And now it's biased slightly more to the front. Turn it to the front. So right now it's about 900 PSI and this is slightly under 700. So we changed it there. So I'm gonna bias it back where that was like 850 in the front and 700 PSI in the rear. Let's see, there's 850, not quite 700. Let's get back to where it was. There's 850. Whoa, that's too much in the rear now. It's darn near equal. Okay, going back. So this is a very effective adjustment here, you guys. All right, there's 850, there's 700. Okay, so that's back where it was. So you can see how, just with this screw here, that goes all the way over to the bias bar, moves it left to right, gives me a mechanical advantage either over the front brakes or the rear brakes. If you look at it, here's the stock throttle and here's the stock brake pedal, or excuse me, clutch pedal. It's sort of funny because the brake pedal is now up here, which is actually in a great place for me to push it with my heel still on the floor. And the throttle pedal works fine too. And I can toe heel like this, no problem. But the clutch pedal is down really low, which in a way doesn't matter. And with it being down low, it gives you the ratio you want, but I'm sort of thinking about moving this pedal up. That changes my pedal ratio, but at least makes them even. I mean, I can drive this no problem, but it's kind of weird having your pedals staggered like that. So that's a little improvement I can make in terms of the ergonomics. The gearbox is a Super T10 4-speed, which I think will be just fine for this car. It doesn't make stupid horsepower. I'm not going to absolutely trash it. Apparently the Super T10 bolted right in with the shifter and all and fits just fine. I still have my reverse lockout here, so that's nice. Let's see. Yep, there's reverse. First, second, third, fourth. It's kind of a long throw, and my arm is hitting the back of the side when I come back to fourth. So there's an opportunity here. If I keep my arm down here, it's not so bad, but it's a little weird where it's at. So I'll probably do some. It's kind of hard to adjust, to just bend this over, because with the reverse lockout, you need that to work. But in a Cobra or something, what you typically do is just heat up the lever, and I'll probably bend it over and forward so it's more up here, close to the steering wheel, and work it that way. So probably do something adjustment with regard to that. Looks like we got a NACA duct here just floating around, probably goes on the outside somewhere to blow some air down here to keep you some airflow. That's a good idea. We have the same kind of thing on the Genius Garage race car. You can see the main kill switch here. Got my gauges laid out. That's pretty decent. Got the tachometer here. Maybe not exactly how I'd lay it out, but the dash is solid. It's got some really nice supports here for the windshield. It's polycarbonate in the front, it's glass in the rear. There's no glass on the sides. The door does open here. Oh, I'm killing Aaron here. So the door opens and closes. It doesn't give you a lot more easy. It doesn't make it a lot easier to get in with the side impact here, but it does help. We've got our window net here. Let's see. Okay, there it is. Okay, so that's good. That's necessary, obviously, for vintage racing and a lot of organizations, so you don't have to have arm restraints. Just a little added safety, that's okay. Over here, if you want to look inside, these polycarbonate side windows would be for, like, if you're putting on an open trailer, you're leaving it outside overnight or something at a race. They Zeus fastener onto the side just to keep rain and stuff out. We've got a big convex mirror here, so I can see everything behind me as well out the side window, so that's good, similar to the other Genius Garage race car. Roll cage, pretty happy with that. Welds look like they've got respectable penetration. They're okay. They could be a little bit better, but honestly, this is going to be a pretty safe car. You got a great bar right here across there, kind of where the knee bar. You got great side impact for both the driver and the passenger. And if you guys didn't notice already, there's a passenger seat. So I can drive it on the street, I can autocross it, I could take it to a road race. It's got an HSR logbook and a CCA logbook, which is key to say here. I'll try to get out. Because the car in the past has raced and done those track days. So, ooh, that hurt. It does have a fuel cell in the rear, which if we get down low, we can get down here on the floor, Aaron, we can look underneath together. So yep, there's the fuel cell, ATL. Of course, the diff, it's got a number of things going on to make that stronger. The lower link to adjust your camber in the rear is now a tie rod with spherical bearings. So that's very helpful to adjust your camber. I've got the adjustable ride height for the composite monoleaf here. Also adjustable with the rod linkages and everything, racing ones for toe in the rear, same way as camber. That's quite nice. Got a big anti-roll bar back here. The exhaust system is dual. Nicely mounted and all, just with two glass packs, so it sounds pretty ripping, but it's reasonably acceptable on the street. Looks like it's got a really nice tow hook here In terms of the rear bumper, most of the rear bumper stuff that would be stock is all taken out. There's some like rudimentary lightweight stuff back here, which is acceptable for driving on the street, but making it a bit lighter. You could put a license plate on this, and apparently if you turn this around it says "Thank you Corner Workers," which is very nice. Obviously you can see the rest of the way the roll cage is tied in to the points here back on the frame. The steel part of the frame of the Corvette, if you guys want to look in here, is underneath this. This is a fiberglass inside, and this panel had to be cut out to be able to weld the roll cage in, presumably, and they did some fiberglass work here. So that's kind of the difficulty when you're doing a Corvette we have to do. This panel here, these triangulate to the roll cage, and it goes down to the differential to stop some wheel hop and bouncing of the diff. I've never opened up this, so let's see what happens and if we can move it much. Can't move it a whole lot because it hinges. I'd have to take that off, but gives me access to see. It looks like there's a hose that directs some air toward the diff, maybe just to keep it temperature down slightly. I think I remember him saying you can lose 20 degrees off the diff with it. But I think the car is nicely set up to be, or at least have the opportunity to be, a reasonable track day car. Just a fun hot rod, take it to the drag strip, take it to the autocross, and you know, reasonably drive it on the street. It should be really cool. I was thinking of flipping this with that, but the nature of just the way the car build was and the fact that it had a title on the street, I was too worried that people are just going to want to hop in this and have it on the street. And because it's a race car and the way it's set up with slicks and everything else, and the fact that it's got low oil pressure that could point to a bunch of different things, or just the nature of the way the engine builder built it, which doesn't make sense to me, but okay. I just didn't think it was a good car for that. So I ended up buying him out of it, and it is going to be a Casey's 80s Garage project, because this is in fact a 1985 C4 Corvette, but now it's got the later 1996 Grand Sport bodywork on. I think it looks really pretty. Heck, it'll look cool sitting next to the Viper, and there's got to be a lot of fun to come with it. So I'm looking forward to doing more events and such. Hopefully the engine isn't hurt in any way internally, but on the plus side, I'll get the opportunity to show you guys, and come on over here and look, why I really like small block Chevys for race cars over about any other engine. The reason, simply put, hang in there, camera guy. The reason, simply put, I like small block Chevys for racing is because there's no other engine that has more parts and performance parts available inexpensively, too. So small block Chevys are just amazing and making a lot of power reliably. They sound awesome. They're big, nasty, and American. And keep in mind, back in the days of Can-Am racing in the United States in the 60s, old Ferrari that thinks they're so darn fancy got their butt kicked by every giant Ford and Chevy V8 that was back there. So anybody that turns their nose up at a small block Chevy, you need to educate yourself, or just get enough utilitarianism in yourself and in your blood that you can outweigh your snobbery. Because they make a lot of horsepower and you get the stuff anywhere you want. Lots of performance places, Jag, Summit, even just go down a local auto parts store. So with regard to the oiling system, my thought, in my experience in the past, it's got a pretty nice aluminum radiator. Assuming the car cools well enough, assuming the engine's not hurt and the gearbox works and all that, and we're decent, we'll get some fresh rubber on it, make sure that the brakes and everything are good, nut and bolt check it, make sure it's got good pads in it. And then with regard to the engine, I'm going to take a peek at it, because right now it's got a normal sump tank on it, or oil pan. And the road racing ones, which are low profile, they come up closer and then they sort of kick out for more capacity. They've got doors in it, trap doors, so when the oil sloshes one way, it always is trying to get the oil to slosh to the middle and stay in there. And then of course, if that's not enough to for long cornering to keep it from starving for oil, you got the accusump already installed, so that's nice. And then of course in a small block Chevy, what drives the oil pump is the cam gear, and actually that is driving the distributor. So the oil pump in a small block Chevy is being driven on the vertical axis here, like this, off of the bottom of the distributor, which is driven off of the cam. And you can always fit different oil pumps and different pickups and such. So when we get into this, we're gonna get up into the air. I'm gonna open up the oil pan, look at that. We're gonna maybe take a look underneath some of the main caps and rod bearing journals, make sure all those things are happy, and then make an educated decision on where to go from there. I believe the engine builder did some things like restricting some oil flow up to the valve train, which a lot of them or most of them do, so it doesn't over pump the oil up there. But I just want to make sure everything's good because I'm not made of money like you guys are, and I don't want to go blowing up a perfectly good motor or one that has the opportunity to be better. So it does need some work, and I hope you guys are excited to follow along. I am all about the 80s cars. I think C4 Corvettes are the best value out there to do cool hot rod stuff or rebody them. And I think this car has got the potential in the future with some work and a little bit of bucks to be an amazing race car. And it was purchased for $10,000, which, if it comes around all right, will be one heck of a good value. So I hope you guys are excited. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.